It's the Dr. Pedagogy Show, and on today's show we're going to look at two exciting new e-learning resources, the Potato Story and Grammaropolis. So here are your hosts, Dr. Amy and Dr. Mark.
Hi, Dr. Mark.
Dr. Amy.
Well, today we're going to examine two e-learning resources. That's the Potato Story, which is from the UK, and also Grammaropolis from the States. These are quite different resources, but they are both interesting in their own way.
That's right, Doctor. So we'll be taking a look at these from a very different perspective today.
How's that?
Well, we're going to have a look at using Jonassen's meaningful learning criteria. Have you heard of this?
No, not really, but I am familiar with the paradigm for studying educational software.
Jonassen's theory indicates that for meaningful learning to occur, a variety of activities should take place. These range from active, cooperative, constructive, authentic and intentional activities.
Okay, and do you think any of these websites are taking that into account?
I'm not sure, Doctor.
Well, Squires and McDougall's paradigm implies that a piece of software is only as useful and effective as it is implemented in the classroom. So basically that means it needs to meet the needs of the teacher, the student and the designer.
Wow, I wonder how these sites rate comparatively.
Let's go have a look. Where did he go? Whoa, who's this?
Hi, Dr. Amy.
It's Mr. Action Verb from Grammaropolis. Mr. Action Verb, what are you doing here?
Well, Dr. Amy, I'm here to tell you about a great place where I live called Grammaropolis. This is where kids can learn all about grammar.
Really? Wow, what can they do there, Mr. Action Man?
Well, they can learn all about the different parts of grammar, and they can meet my friend Nigel the Nail.
What else can they do there, Mr. Action Verb?
Well, they can look at videos about grammar, they can read some stories about grammar, and they can do some tests and some puzzles, and even do some colouring in.
Wow, that does sound interesting. You know, Dr. Mark and I will have to look at that later on today because we are having a look at e-learning resources and meaningful learning.
Wow! Well, I gotta go, Dr. Amy. See ya!
Bye, Mr. Action Verb. Isn't it strange? Every time Mr. Action Verb is here, Dr. Mark is nowhere to be found. Curious.
Due to legal obligations, we cannot release the identity of our next guest who wishes to remain anonymous. So we'll just refer to our next guest as the Potato Detective. Welcome, Detective.
Thank you, Dr. Mark.
Now, Detective, can you tell us about the Potato Story website?
Well, Dr. Mark, the Potato Story contains a variety of learning objects which tries to raise nutritional awareness in children, especially including the scientific processes which involves getting the food from the field to their forks.
So you mean chickens don't lay potatoes?
Well, exactly. A lot of kids do see it like that nowadays. As they see it from a supermarket, they have no idea where it comes from. The Potato Story is a very colourful and noisy website which tries to attract the children. It uses animations, tutorials and games. It even contains detailed lesson plans and downloadable activity sheets for teachers.
Well, it's good that they've thought of this for the teachers.
Exactly. Well, somebody needs to think about the teachers' stories there. Better dash. Don't want to be detected.
Well, that was interesting. I'm not sure the Grammaropolis website promotes much meaningful learning at all. It seems as though there's a lot of content in the site and it'll be great for visual learners. But there's no thought being given to the actual learning process and for the students or for the teachers to implement this learning.
Yeah, and the last thing the teachers want is to end up with what Resnick refers to as children's partaking in mindless interaction and passive consumption.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there was an issue with Grammaropolis where there's no direction for the teacher to guide the learning that is actually taking place. I mean, it does provide all the definitions of grammar and it uses its contextual uses, but there's actually no consideration for prior knowledge or ways that the new learning can actually be observed.
That's right. And whereas the Potato Story, it takes both the processes into account. And by supplying, it's got the lesson plans for the teachers, it's got the extra games and extension activities for the students. And Squire and McDougall place a great deal of importance on this. And the lesson process and the content for the teacher and the designer aspect for the software analysis.
Yeah.
So what sort of meaningful learning do you think is encouraged by these sites?
Well, if you look at both of them using Jonassen's theory, they do both contain active learning experiences through manipulation of the games and puzzles and quizzes.
And what about authentic learning as well?
Yeah.
Both the activities in each website are embedded in real life situations there's the real life context, but does that allow for meaningful learning to actually occur?
Well, in the potato game, it sort of provides a combination of authentic and intentional learning in the potato quiz game, because they are trying to discover why the farmers' crops have failed, and then they use problem solving to reach that goal.
Exactly. See, and in contrast, Grammaropolis, it doesn't actually give any problem solving activities for the children to do. What it does is place the use of grammar in everyday context, which is really good, and the students, they can see how important grammar is for the actual use of language.
Yeah. I actually think that one of the most important aspects of the meaningful learning theory is the constructive aspect, as this is where the children actually reflect on the knowledge and articulate what they've learnt. In the potato detective game, they are tested using quizzes. So they use the knowledge that they have acquired to save the crops. What about Grammaropolis?
Well, as Jonathan says, new experiences often provide that discrepancy between what the learners observe and what they already know. And this is where they say that meaningful learning takes place. But with Grammaropolis, the quiz, well, it actually allows the student to articulate what they've learned, but there really isn't a clear way of reflecting or articulating the actual learning of how they got to that point in the website.
Right.
And also the games, you can rote learn what needs to be done and repeat them over and over again. So it's not very effective.
Yeah. Well, and the other aspect of meaningful learning for collaborative learning, well, that would depend on how the software is implemented in the classroom. It goes back to Squires and McDougall.
It does.
Yeah.
So, in summary, I don't really feel that Grammaropolis really meets the meaningful learning criteria that we've looked at today. I think Squires describes in his article about the subversive use and volatile design of software. And I think Grammaropolis in this situation can be used in a subversive way, and a directed subversive way by a teacher. And in this situation, I think the teachers can use the software or the website to do extension programs for getting the children to write stories, to maybe even role play the activities of the grammar which are shown in the videos, and that way I think there can be some extension of the website. But for Grammaropolis, I think it's more edutainment than actually an educational software thing, and I'll give it 2 stars.
Harsh. Well, I think the Potato Story website is at the complete other end of the spectrum. I think it's an excellent learning tool for teachers. It covers all the aspects of meaningful learning. It's got the detailed lesson plans that shows that thoughts not only go on into the software itself, but the design of its use in the classroom. So I reckon 4.5 stars. I
agree. I think that the Potato Story is an excellent learning tool. I think Grammaropolis has a lot to offer, but I think it could do more. Thumbs down.
So that's it for today's show.
It is!
Yes.
That's all for Dr. Pedagogy for this week.